In the vast, cold chamber of the Galactic Research Council, silence hung heavy as a report flashed across their main holographic display. This was no ordinary message. It was a warning, an update on one of the galaxy's most infamous planets, the planet X-497, known across the galaxy as a death world. Its atmosphere is toxic, thick with volatile gases. The surface itself is a treacherous wasteland, racked with acidic storms and corrosive rivers. For most species, even a brief landing would mean certain death. The Council's view zoomed in on X-497's churning surface. Sulfuric clouds swirled against a backdrop of cracked, jagged landscapes as lightning split the skies in furious, erratic bursts. But today a new report had arrived, and it was more unsettling than any the Council had received before. Against all reason, a team of humans, a species known for their resilience, yet still thought of as reckless, had landed on X-497. There was a ripple of disbelief among the Council members, each more perplexed than the last. They could only watch as the human ship entered the atmosphere, descending through the planet's violent, hazy clouds. Voluntarily. The report specified that humans had arrived voluntarily, and not as researchers or specialists, but for recreation. For a moment the Council sat in stunned silence. The idea was incomprehensible to them. For any other species, this world represented only danger, a place best observed from a distance, studied with utmost caution. Yet here were humans treating it as though it were a holiday destination. To the Galactic Council, the concept was unthinkable, an affront to everything they understood about survival. And so, what had begun as a standard planetary report quickly became something far more. With mounting curiosity and no small amount of horror, the Council decided to observe the humans' every move. And so the Council waited, watching as the humans prepared to touch down on the surface of X-497. They had no idea that what they were about to witness would challenge their most fundamental beliefs. The humans' ship touched down on the harsh, alien soil of X-497 with an almost casual grace, its ramp lowering into the swirling haze. From the Council's viewpoint, through the grainy feed of surveillance drones, the humans emerged, smiling, laughing, and looking as if they'd arrived for a casual camping trip rather than on a death world. With little more than basic oxygen masks, insulated blankets, and a few small packs slung over their shoulders, the humans exited their ship, barely pausing to survey the hostile terrain. To them it seemed the planet's toxic atmosphere, corrosive ground, and volatile winds were mere inconveniences. One of the humans knelt, unpacking what appeared to be simple tools. Another unfurled a sheet labeled "Emergency Thermal Blanket" in bright, unmissable letters, while others began assembling what looked like tents made of thin, synthetic material. The Galactic Council watched in stunned silence, each new movement a mystery wrapped in casual indifference. The humans worked with an ease that belied the dangers surrounding them. It was as if they were oblivious to the lethal nature of their surroundings. With quick, practiced motions, the humans set up their camp. Lightweight tents staked into the soil, duct tape applied liberally to reinforce their gear, and a small pile of supplies gathered at the center. From the Council's perspective, these supplies seemed absurdly primitive for the conditions. Bags of trail mix, cans of coffee, even a box labeled "marshmallows." And then, as if they weren't already testing the limits of reason, they set up a small open flame in the center of their camp. Fire, on a planet where oxygen was scarce and the atmosphere was laced with unknown chemicals. To the Council it seemed that these humans possessed either a terrifying ignorance or an equally terrifying confidence. The drones relayed close-ups of the humans laughing as they adjusted their tents, sharing snacks, and preparing for what they seemed to consider a cozy evening in the wild. For the Council, the sight was nothing short of unbelievable. They had expected to see humans struggling, overwhelmed by the hostile environment. Instead, they saw a scene that defied all logic, a scene of humans laughing in the face of a world that would kill any other species within minutes. The Council's observation chamber filled with quiet murmurs of confusion and disapproval, but curiosity kept every gaze fixed firmly on the screen. In that moment, each Council member wondered the same thing. How could any species be so unshaken? The council chamber was filled with tension as the alien council members continued to watch the humans' camping trip unfold. Each new scene on X-497 only deepened their confusion and disbelief. As the humans settled into their makeshift camp, the council's reactions ranged from horrified gasps to bewildered whispers. Their primitive tools and casual demeanor were baffling enough, but now the humans seemed to be enjoying themselves. One human held up a stick, poking a fluffy white substance over their small flame. The council members squinted, unable to make sense of what they were seeing. Their supplies, laughably insufficient for any true survival situation, included not scientific instruments or reinforced barriers, but trail mix, canisters of coffee and marshmallows, a substance alien to the council, but one that humans seemed to treat as delicacy. The council observed as the humans joked, exchanged stories, and roasted their marshmallows, seemingly unfazed by the hostile world around them. The council members were left to interpret this bizarre behavior with growing concern. In hushed voices, the council members debated among themselves. Was this some form of ritual, a misguided display of bravery, or perhaps a severe lack of survival knowledge? One council member leaned forward, addressing the others with a tone of exasperation. "Surely they're aware that this atmosphere is laced with corrosive gases?" he asked, his voice barely hiding his disbelief. "These humans, they use primitive adhesives, not specialized sealants. What's more, they're eating near an open flame on a planet where even the air itself is unpredictable." Another council member, younger and more curious, tilted her head thoughtfully as she watched the humans on screen. "Perhaps this is a coping mechanism," she suggested quietly. "Humans might resort to strange customs in times of stress. Maybe they view this as some kind of bonding exercise." Yet another council member scoffed, his voice laced with a mixture of frustration and awe. "Bonding exercise? On a death world? They're on a planet we classify as uninhabitable, and they're sitting there as if it's a pleasant excursion." For the Galactic Council, the humans' actions bordered on insanity. But as they continued to watch, an unsettling realization began to sink in. Each council member grappled with the unsettling possibility that humans were not merely surviving this planet's dangers, they were treating them as part of the experience. The humans weren't retreating from the challenges around them. They were, instead, embracing them with humor and camaraderie. What the council couldn't comprehend, what they had yet to fully grasp, was that for these humans, survival wasn't just about safety. It was something more, something deeper. And that realization left the council both baffled and profoundly intrigued. Hours passed as the council watched the humans interact with their surroundings, a dangerous world full of harsh surprises. And soon enough, X-497 decided to test its unwelcome visitors. A dark, sulfurous storm gathered on the horizon, swirling violently as it approached the humans' camp. To the council, it was a familiar and lethal sight. Acidic rain that could corrode metal within minutes and gusting winds strong enough to tear through reinforced structures. The council members leaned forward, expecting to see the humans finally retreat, or at the very least, seek shelter inside their ship. But to their astonishment, the humans remained outside, observing the storm with what appeared to be excitement. Their voices crackled over the drone's audio feed, filled not with fear, but with an odd mixture of enthusiasm and awe. The humans donned their basic oxygen masks and wrapped thermal blankets around their shoulders, securing them with the same duct tape they'd used to hold their camp together. One of them gave a thumbs up to the others, and then they settled down, huddled in a circle around their small fire. The council was in complete disbelief. It was a display that defied reason, a level of resilience that bordered on madness. The humans weren't just ignoring the storm. They were embracing it, sitting together, laughing, as if they were in the middle of a cozy gathering rather than bracing against a deadly, acid-laden tempest. Lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating their figures against the hostile landscape. Yet, instead of retreating, the humans raised their arms to shield themselves from the wind, exchanging shouts that the drones barely picked up. They spoke as if they were reminiscing about Earth, comparing X-497's toxic storms to extreme weather they had survived back home. For them, it was less of a threat and more of a shared adventure. The council could scarcely believe their eyes. The storm intensified, droplets of acidic rain splattering around the humans. They pulled their blankets tighter, ducking their heads, but stayed right where they were. One of them lifted a marshmallow into the storm's path, laughing as it dissolved almost instantly. In that moment, the Galactic Council witnessed something they had never encountered in all their years of study. These humans weren't merely enduring this hostile world. They were finding enjoyment in the challenge it presented. They weren't just fighting to survive. They were, incredibly, thriving. The council members exchanged glances, each grappling with this unfamiliar sight, this strange resilience that defied all they knew. How could a species view such lethal forces as part of an experience rather than something to fear? How could they stay calm, even joyful, under such conditions? And as the storm raged on, the council realized something else. This was not an anomaly, not a random occurrence. This was simply the human way. As the storm on X-497 subsided, the council members sat in their chamber, their expressions tense and thoughtful. They had witnessed something unprecedented. Humans not only surviving in a hostile environment, but finding joy in it, approaching danger with laughter and camaraderie. For hours they had observed the humans on this death world, each scene more baffling than the last. The council members exchanged uncertain glances, grappling with a question that had taken root in each of their minds. Were these humans simply reckless, or was there something more to their behavior? One of the senior council members broke the silence, his voice measured yet tinged with frustration. "This behavior, it is completely illogical," he stated, scanning the room as if daring anyone to disagree. "They treat this planet's dangers as if they are nothing more than minor inconveniences. Surely no species could evolve with such a disregard for survival." Another council member, younger and more curious, raised a hand in tentative disagreement. "Or perhaps we misunderstand their approach entirely," she suggested. "To them, it may not be disregard, but resilience. They seem to thrive in the face of danger, as though it strengthens their resolve. Could it be that their survival instincts are different from ours?" The room grew quiet as the council members considered this idea. One by one, they turned back to the display, where the humans were once again laughing and sharing food, completely unfazed by the remnants of the storm that had just passed. The council had spent countless cycles perfecting safety protocols, advancing technology, and building shelters to avoid risk wherever possible. For them, survival was rooted in caution, and yet, here were humans treating danger not as a force to be avoided, but as something to engage with, even to enjoy. One council member, a highly respected scientist known for his cautious nature, leaned forward, a frown creasing his brow. "Are you suggesting," he said slowly, "that there is merit in such recklessness, that this thrill-seeking has value?" The younger council member met his gaze, her expression resolute. "Perhaps it isn't thrill-seeking. Perhaps it's a form of adaptation. Humans seem to use challenge as a way to bond, to build trust. They face danger together, and in doing so, they gain something we may not fully understand." A ripple of thought passed through the room as each council member grappled with this new perspective. For so long, they had viewed survival as a series of barriers to protect, shield, and preserve life. But watching the humans, they were beginning to question that assumption. To them, survival had always meant sheltering from the elements, avoiding risks, and insulating themselves from anything unknown. Yet, here was a species that seemed to believe that survival was something more, something that went beyond mere safety. Perhaps to truly survive, one had to live. And so, as the council sat in contemplative silence, the seeds of a new understanding began to take root, a question lingering in the back of every mind. What if there was more to life than just preserving it? Hours after the first storm had passed, the council's monitors registered a new alert. The atmosphere on X-497 had shifted drastically once again. Sensors detected a toxic gas storm approaching the humans' camp, an event classified as Level 5, the highest threat level. The council chamber was a flurry of activity as warnings blared through their communication systems. Every sensor indicated that the incoming storm was far more dangerous than the last, with highly corrosive gases and wind strong enough to strip flesh from bone. From the council's perspective, the only logical course of action was immediate evacuation. They had already seen the humans withstand impossible conditions, but this was different. This was a storm designed to leave nothing alive in its wake. Urgency rippled through the council as they prepared an emergency alert to the humans. But just as the transmission was being composed, something unusual caught their attention. The humans, instead of fleeing, were calmly donning their masks, securing their equipment, and bracing themselves, as if they were about to enjoy another day on a rugged camping trip. The council's communication channel fell silent as they watched the humans' preparations. Incredibly, none of them showed fear or even hesitation. Their movements were confident, practiced. They adjusted their masks, reinforced their tents with duct tape, and even tightened their thermal blankets as they huddled together in anticipation. The council members watched, aghast, as one human adjusted his mask with a grin, turning to his companions with a casual wave. It was as if he were saying, "Here we go again." Their words, faint but audible through the feed, only deepened the council's sense of disbelief. One human raised his voice over the wind, a hint of humor in his tone. "Reminds me of that hike in Death Valley. Looks like we're in for another round," he said, eliciting laughter from the others. The council was frozen in horror. To face this kind of storm with such nonchalance, it was beyond anything they could comprehend. Their survival instincts, honed over centuries, screamed at them to act, to intervene, to pull these humans to safety. One council member couldn't take it any longer. She activated the transmission feed, ready to issue an urgent evacuation order. But as she was about to speak, another council member raised a hand to stop her. There was a moment of silence. The council's attention split between the impending storm and the humans, who now braced themselves with calm, almost cheerful expressions. We should let them handle this on their terms," he said, his voice uncertain yet resolute. "They have faced dangers here that we could not imagine. Let us see, let us observe, and perhaps learn from their response." The council hesitated, but ultimately agreed. They watched in tense silence as the storm arrived, slamming into the humans' camp with brutal force. Toxic gases whipped through the air, and acidic rain hissed against the ground. The humans held their ground, leaning into the wind, their laughter echoing faintly through the storm. To the council, it was an impossible sight. Any other species would have fled, would have sought shelter in the deepest recesses of their ships. But these humans faced the storm head-on, as if it were just another part of their journey. And as the toxic storm raged on, the council began to understand that humanity's strength lay not in avoiding danger, but in meeting it with open hearts and unwavering courage. As the toxic storm gradually subsided, the council observed the aftermath with an odd mixture of relief and awe. Against all expectations, the humans had endured the storm with minimal damage, their camp still intact. What's more, they appeared as cheerful as ever, joking and sharing snacks as if the storm had been nothing more than an exciting event. The council had watched, prepared for the worst, and yet, here the humans were as resilient as ever, unfazed by the lethal ordeal they'd just faced. It was becoming clear that their survival was not a mere fluke. It was a testament to something deeper, something ingrained within their species. Suddenly, one of the humans glanced up at the drone still hovering nearby. She raised a hand, waving in a friendly, almost inviting gesture. For the council, this simple wave carried an unexpected impact. It was as if the humans had reached out, acknowledging their alien observers not as distant scientists, but as potential friends. And then, with a grin that somehow conveyed warmth across the vast cultural divide, one of the humans called out to the drone's camera feed. His voice, distorted by the mask but unmistakably friendly, reached the council chamber. "Hey there, why don't you folks come down and join us? We've got coffee and we'd be happy to share." The council members exchanged bewildered glances, caught entirely off guard by the invitation. It was unheard of, No species had ever invited the Council's observation drones to join them, especially not on a world as hostile as X-497. Against all logic, the humans had reached out, offering their humble supplies with genuine warmth, as if the alien scientists watching from afar were simply neighbors visiting for a casual evening around the campfire. The Council's decision-makers hesitated, unsure of how to respond. Finally, they agreed to activate two-way audio. One council member, cautiously, spoke into the transmission feed. "You wish for us to join you?" The council member's voice was formal, but there was a hint of wonder in the tone. We are merely observing, but we appreciate your offer." The humans exchanged glances, amused yet sincere. "Well, we're glad to have the company," another human replied, chuckling. "It's nice to know we've got an audience." He poured himself a cup of coffee, holding it up in a casual toast to the drone camera. For the council, this interaction felt surreal. They had expected fear, desperation, or at least discomfort from the humans. Instead, they were met with hospitality and warmth, a concept almost alien in itself on such a dangerous world. The humans began sharing stories, seemingly for the benefit of the council, recounting experiences they'd had on Earth's most extreme environments. They spoke of deserts, of mountains, of frozen tundras, and of oceans teeming with dangers. And as they spoke, a peculiar thought occurred to the council. It wasn't just that the humans had survived these harsh places. It was that they cherished these memories. To them, each challenge was a treasured experience, a moment of growth. They spoke with fondness of places that would send most species running. Slowly, the council members began to understand that humanity's resilience wasn't just a biological trait. It was a perspective, a choice to see challenges not as threats, but as opportunities to connect, to learn, and to live fully. And as the humans sat around their campfire, sharing laughs, stories, and mugs of coffee with a drone that carried their words across the galaxy, the council found themselves drawn into this strange ritual, a ritual not of survival, but of companionship, of shared experience. For the first time, the council members felt a kinship with these strange, resilient beings. The humans had reached out across cultures, across worlds, and in doing so, they had forged an unexpected bond. In the quiet that followed the humans' campfire stories, the council members sat in thoughtful silence. The tales of Earth's most dangerous places, deserts that stretched endlessly, oceans as deep as they were treacherous, frozen wastelands untouched by life, had left an indelible impression on each council member. To the Galactic Council, survival had always been a matter of safety, of insulation from danger, of minimizing risk wherever possible. For centuries, they had perfected their technology, their protocols, and their cautious approach to exploration. Safety, they believed, was paramount. But as they listened to the humans speak, the council began to understand that these beings viewed survival differently. It wasn't merely about enduring. It was about engaging with the unknown, facing it head-on, and finding meaning in every experience, no matter how daunting. One of the senior council members broke the silence, his voice soft but resonant. He looked around the chamber, meeting the eyes of his colleagues, and spoke words that carried an unexpected weight. "We have always valued caution above all else," he began. "We view survival as a precious thing to be preserved, a flame to shield from the wind. But perhaps we have been mistaken. Perhaps survival means more than avoiding danger." His words lingered, sinking into the minds of his fellow council members. For so long, they had watched the galaxy from behind walls of safety and protection, venturing only when conditions were entirely controlled. But now they found themselves questioning that approach. "The humans," another council member began, her voice filled with awe. "They don't just survive, they live. They immerse themselves in the experience, even when that experience is dangerous. They find joy, even in the face of death." The council murmured in agreement, a rare unanimity spreading among them. Each council member reflected on the humans' journey to X-497, a journey that would have been unthinkable for any other species. And yet, in this act of bravery, or perhaps as they now saw it, wisdom, the humans had demonstrated something profoundly moving. They realized that, while they had spent eons perfecting survival techniques, insulating themselves from danger. Humans had found strength in embracing the unknown, and in doing so, they had discovered something the Council had overlooked: that true survival was not just about persisting, but about thriving, even in adversity. One of the younger Council members, inspired by the humans' stories, raised a suggestion that felt as radical as it was thrilling. "Perhaps," she said tentatively, "it is time we reconsider our protocols. Instead of simply avoiding the unknown, perhaps we should begin to explore it, to learn from it, and maybe even grow stronger because of it." The council chamber fell silent, each member lost in thought, contemplating a future where survival didn't mean isolation, but exploration. The humans had shown them a new path, one where survival could mean facing life's challenges with open arms, and not just seeking to exist, but to truly live. And in that moment, the council understood that this was more than just an encounter with another species. This was a turning point, a revelation that would forever change their understanding of survival, resilience, and the nature of life itself. They had watched the humans with apprehension, with disbelief, with awe, and now, finally, with respect. For the first time in their history, the Galactic Council was ready to rethink their approach, not only to survival, but to life. The humans' stay on X-497 had come to an end. The Council watched as the crew packed up their camp, efficiently stowing away their gear, their laughter and camaraderie undiminished by the trials they had faced. With the same casual ease that had baffled the Council from the start, they prepared for departure. As the humans loaded their supplies back onto their ship, the Council felt a bittersweet sensation, a peculiar blend of relief and admiration. They had watched, analyzed, and marveled at this species that defied every logical expectation. And now, as the humans prepared to leave, the Council found themselves strangely inspired. One of the humans turned toward the drone, pausing for a moment. He lifted a hand in a casual wave, a simple gesture that felt almost profound in its sincerity. His smile was visible, even through the grainy feed, a final friendly acknowledgement. And then, with a rumbling hum, the human's ship lifted off, ascending through X-497's volatile skies, disappearing into the vastness of space. But they left behind something greater than mere footprints. They had ignited a spark, a curiosity, a newfound respect, and perhaps a desire for change. In the council chamber, silence reigned as the members reflected on all they had witnessed. The humans had not only survived X-497, they had left their mark on the council's minds and hearts, challenging everything they thought they knew about survival and resilience. One by one, the council members spoke, their voices hushed yet filled with resolve. They discussed new exploration protocols, ways to embrace the unknown without the excessive constraints that had once defined their approach. Inspired by humanity's spirit, they considered the possibility of facing risks not with fear, but with curiosity. In the midst of their discussion, one council member, perhaps the most cautious among them, spoke words that echoed through the chamber like a promise. "Perhaps," he said, his voice steady and determined, "it is time for us to venture beyond the safety of our walls, to embrace the unknown, just as the humans do, to understand that survival is only one part of truly living." And so, in the wake of the humans' departure, the council began drafting new guidelines, new goals. They considered partnerships, interspecies exchanges, even collaborations that would bring them closer to the resilient species that had shown them a new way to see the universe. The humans had come to X-497 for an adventure, and they had left behind an awakening, a call to the Galactic Council to reconsider their view of life itself. They had redefined survival, showing that to thrive, one must not only face the unknown, but embrace it with open arms and a willing heart. As the council members finalized their plans, their vision of the galaxy had changed forever. They had glimpsed a future where exploration wasn't merely a task, but an adventure, a journey shared among friends, allies, and perhaps even one day partners. And in that future, one thing was certain: humanity's legacy on X-497 would never be forgotten.